Most of the oil we drill out of the ground today came from algae and other seaborne flora that had been on the ocean floor over the course of millennia, and through the process of heat and expansion became what we use for crude oil today. But what if we were able to speed that process up? Researchers think they've done it with a process of hydrothermal liquefaction.
So this is not a new idea. Companies have been wanting to do this forever. In fact,
well, Exxon tried, but they believed that they needed an algae that was particularly oily.
They were willing to put up $600 million to develop this process. In 2009, they said it couldn't be done.
Well, new researchers now are saying we don't need a particularly oily algae to be found. We need to find a new process to liquefy that into a crude that can be processed in a plant.
What I'm reading here makes it sound like it's the easiest thing in the world.
It isn't. And it isn't commercial, and it's only in experimental phases right now.
You mix up a source of algae mixed with water, 20% algae by weight. Then you send it down tubes at 660 degrees Fahrenheit at 3,000 psi for 30 minutes. And then what you get is crude oil. How hard was that? It's a recipe. It looks really easy.
Well, it looks easy, but
it sounds like actually one of the issues is growing the algae in like a high enough quantity and fast enough and with limited enough resources that it's actually worth it. Because as of right now, apparently the methods of cultivating the algae are more expensive than the energy that's actually contained in the algae.
Right. Well, they say they can get it down to a cost of $5 per gallon as far as the cost of growing the algae and then processing it with hydrothermal liquefaction. But I mean, $5 a gallon sounds good as far as producing crude oil is going. But then they go on to say that the crude oil is not the only thing that this process yields. It also makes a stream of carbon dioxide, hydrogen, and oxygen, which can be readily turned into a synthetic natural gas.
Right. So there's byproducts that are of the process that are also useful.
It excretes a liquid that's very rich in nutrients that they use for fertilizer.
Exactly.
For more algae.
The algae product that's left over can be fertilizer used to grow more algae. So this seems like a dream process. What am I missing here? What's
the issue that I see?
Why don't I have one of these in my car right now?
It's not up to commercial speeds yet. It's not up to massive production. They're saying it could work. It's very lightweight. It's low in sulfur. They could just drop it into plants that process crude oil now into what we see.
So here's my problem with this. So algae, okay, that's natural. That's great. Okay, we're synthesizing it, so we're not drilling all of that. Excellent. It's still crude oil. And this does not talk at all about like carbon emissions when it's burned. And is this actually like a step in the right direction, or should we be applying more technology towards biodiesel and things like that that are lower in emissions instead of just trying to figure out how can we get more crude oil?
Yes, there is an inconvenient truth side to this, and it does take up a lot of resources to create the oil itself. But they're saying that maybe there is an alternative to drilling, I think is the heart of this.
Which I think is great. I think that's really cool, but it feels like there's an omission about like, well, what happens to this crude oil after we produce it?
So it's not so much that we're turning a non-renewable energy source into a renewable one or a manufacturable one. It's the fact that we're still not working with clean energy. We're still
right,
working
it's more sustainable than what we have
dirty
now.
Oil.
But it's still not necessarily a good thing for us to be like running the world on.
So this is not a dream scenario, this is a nightmare scenario. This is us being reliant on oil forever.
I don't know if it's a nightmare. I mean, you just changed your opinion from this is a dream, how could I do this? I can't believe it's not a real thing, to
it's
nightmare.
That's how I wanted the story to progress.
No, Tim.
Well, that was always the nice thing about crude oil, is that as bad it is for our planet, eventually we were going to run out, and we would have had to like make cheaper electric cars, and we would have
been forced toward innovation, clean innovation.
Now we're not.
I don't think it's going to stop us innovating toward clean energy and a more viable source that's good for the earth too, but it's kind of like a patch, I would say.
Right, because I feel like part of the incentive for people to start getting hybrid cars, electric cars, things like that, is that gas prices are escalating, and over the long run, having an electric vehicle is going to save you money. But if they're able to perfect the algae growing process, and then this is the way that we get our gasoline, gas prices start going down again, are people still going to have incentives to go green? I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like those benefits will become marginalized, is my guess.
That's my concern. I think this is really
Or maybe
cool.
we'll realize what a pain in the ass it is to produce, and we'll be like, we should be focusing on electric or hydrogen or something new, some kind of new fuel cell.
Right.
So we don't know. I mean, I appreciate that it's there, that it at least stops us from needing to drill a little bit in theory. This is all still pretty theoretical.
We'll just wait to see what Big Algae has to say. Their lobbyists will start telling us.
Yeah, Tim. I hadn't considered that
It's
angle.
all politics, man. It's all money.
The prices of sushi are going to skyrocket.
Boom! Out of control. All this algae is going to oil, and then no more sushi. You heard it here.
This article does mention the potential of not only using algae as a source in this liquefaction, but also other materials such as sewage, waste. They're just saying that algae is probably the most efficient use for now that we know of.
Yeah, I don't know how
Don't
big...
you want a poop car?
Yeah, I would drive in a poop car. Definitely.
Well, it sounds like to me like pretty much you can use this process on most organic material. They
material.
were talking about like fish heads and stuff like that will work for it too, because when you think about it, you're replicating the fossilization process, which will happen to any organic material, as we've seen.
So I'm interested to see, like, on the balancing scales of like draining our landfills, but still using oil to make energy, like what the net carbon footprint will be out of this process. It could still be good.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we could see a case of the costs and the benefits, you know, sliding more towards our side, but we don't really know yet. What do you think the cost and risk of this algae liquefaction could be for crude oil, or if we shouldn't be focusing on this at all and leaving big algae out of the picture? Let us know what you think of all of this in the comments below, and please be sure to subscribe.